Hello and welcome viewers. You're watching this special presentation of Sansad TV with your host Kriti Mishra. And joining us today is a very special guest, Chairman of CBDT, Mr. Ravi Agarwal. So welcome to Sansad TV and thank you so much for joining us. So let's begin talking about the new Income Tax Act, the Income Tax Act of 2025. Now the Parent Act of 1961 has been amended 65 times, more than 4,000 amendments. What is your core philosophy behind the newest act, which is said to be the most comprehensive one till date?
So, Income Tax Act 1961 from 61 till 2025 in this span of about 64 years, it had developed over a period of time, and as you very rightly mentioned, there were so many amendments. And those amendments actually kept pace with the changing realities and requirements of the economy. And therefore, if I may say that Income Tax Act is a dynamic act as against any other acts, and it has kept pace with the economy in terms of the requirements, new requirements, not only in the context of from an economy point of view, but also from the point of view of maybe you needed some sort of incentive for backward areas. So, the Income Tax Act 61 provided that those provisions to help giving a push to the backward areas, to some other stream of businesses and so on and so forth. Over a period of time, this act had become complex, and there were multiple cross-referencing that had happened, and taxpayers were finding it difficult to actually navigate through the provisions of the Income Tax Act 61. And therefore, the philosophy and the basic intent of putting in place a 25 Act was, how do we make the language simple and easy for the taxpayers to understand. So, with that philosophy, not changing the core policy as such, because as I mentioned, the 61 Act itself was a dynamic act. So, that shift in the policy had already taken place, but then the priority was to make it simple and lucid and easy to understand, and that is what we have done.
So, what does it fundamentally change for the taxpayers of this country?
The fundamental change, as I mentioned, there is no change in the policy as such, because we have kept pace with the changing requirements of the economy, and the present Income Tax Act 61 actually is a current act, right, which has taken care of all the changes that were required. But then what we have done in this IT Act 25 is bringing more clarity, then presenting the provisions of different provisions pertaining to a particular theme in a consolidated manner. So, they were scattered and they were lying in the different portions of the Income Tax Act 61. Those have been brought together. Those have been presented better in the form of tables and formulas for people to understand, and that has the present now Income Tax Act 25 is a more technology driven act also, because this is going to stay for next number of years, and now we are in a digital age. So, how do we align the new act with technology? That is what we have also tried.
How have we achieved that objective, given the fact that we are moving towards faceless assessment, highly digitized version? How have we incorporated that in the Act?
As I mentioned, we have when we have brought these provisions together, we have presented in the form of tables and formula. It is easy now for converting it into a mathematical formula for better processing of the returns in a digital manner. As you would be aware that today we are doing end-to-end processing of the income tax returns in digital format. The various facets of tax administration are also now in a digital mode. For example, faceless assessments, the notices are also, all the notices are going in e-environment. So, the intent was that how do we bring in a piece of legislation which is aligned with technology, and this is just a beginning, because when we talk about Income Tax Act 25, going forward there would be rules and forms we are working on that, and the attempt is that how do we make the life of the taxpayer simpler, that is one. How do we actually make the forms simple for them to understand and fill up? How can we actually ensure that we pre-fill the forms, and therefore the tables and table structure should be such that they are in conformity with or consistent with the different forms and different structures.
Absolutely, sir. Sir, how does it align with India's long-term tax reform vision that we have?
So, when you talk about long-term tax reforms and vision, what is it that is required? Clarity,
Yes.
right? Consistency, less litigation, right? More confidence. So, these are some essential pillars on which in case the tax administration rests, that brings more clarity on progressiveness into the economy. And that is what this act, this exercise has actually delivered. Simpler language would bring more clarity. The litigation would be less, because if it is clear to the taxpayer, it is clear to the judicial forum, then the need for or the chances of multiple interpretations, they also go, and with that the litigation minimizes. With clarity, confidence also comes, that it becomes more, the taxpayer becomes more confident, overall the system becomes more confident about it. From the international tax perspective also, the investors who are coming to India, for them the provisions become more clear. So, this is the basic I think value that the new initiative would be bringing.
So, you mentioned two very important points, litigation and global best practices. I'll touch on litigation first. It is one of the biggest problems that is burdening our judicial system. So, while on the stage of drafting this act, this particular factor was kept in mind, that litigation has to be reduced.
Yes, so the intent was, one of the primary intents of this coming up with this act was, how do we going forward minimize litigation, and what are the areas where this litigation happens actually? Can we actually simplify the language so that interpretations, multiple interpretations, we are able to take care of it? The core philosophy was that if the sentence as such, which the articulation is simple, it is more direct, it is in the tabular form, then the interpretations would be minimal, and therefore the litigation would also be addressed.
And so, global best practices, how does it align global best practices?
So, while we were actually drafting this Income Tax Act 25, we also studied the acts and different provisions, direct tax provisions of different countries, and we took some sort of lessons from the the exercise that they had done, and the approach that they have adopted. Some of it, this is, for example, I mentioned about the tables, the formulas. So, this is a new way of presenting any statute. This is a philosophy that we actually took and from other countries. And in fact, I would share that very recently I was in the OECD sharing the experiences of how we actually went about preparing or drafting this act, and there also we were appreciated for the entire process that was followed in finalizing this act.
So, since it's such a comprehensive reform, was the journey very difficult? How were the days in the CBDT office?
Yeah, so it was very interesting and it was very inspiring also. And I would take this opportunity to actually thank and compliment the team, entire team in the income tax department, the team which were all involved, about set of about 150 officers who were involved in drafting the Income Tax Act. And so it was really inspiring to see the youngsters, younger officers. It was a mix of experience and energy. So, this is a journey of conceptualizing the Income Tax Act, and finally seeing that it gets passed in the Parliament. This entire period from July till next August, that is 1 year as such, was a very satisfying and inspiring experience.
Absolutely, sir. And now when you talk to people, the taxpayers and the other stakeholders, what's the feedback like on the Act?
The feedback has been positive. It has been received well, and we got a lot of comments from the stakeholders, feedback from the stakeholders, and I would share that this entire exercise was a very democratic process. Yes. Because it was not confined to those 150 officers, but views of stakeholders all across from different segments of the business was taken. Technology was we took help of the technology, and we got stakeholder feedback in thousands, and each of those feedbacks were actually analyzed and gone through. Then we were when we interacted with the select committee of the parliamentarians, that experience was actually a very inspiring experience, because we got the advice of the honorable members of parliament on different issues, who in themselves they had done that due diligence and interacted with the stakeholders, and there were more than 1,000 clauses.
Yes.
Yeah, which were there, and each clause was threadbare discussed, and the nuances, the implications of issues involved in each of the clauses was gone through, and based on that, then we were able to finalize the final draft, which was ultimately passed by the parliament.
In fact, most of the recommendations of the committee were also incorporated in the Act.
Yes, yes.
So finally, how do you see this Act in India's long-term strategic planning, in India's long-term fiscal planning?
Well, going forward, as I mentioned, it is a futuristic Act, and today it is basically inspired by the digitization process as such, because we were very conscious that going forward the tax administration would be driven by technology.
Absolutely.
So that would be the backbone, and this Act would actually help us in ensuring that we put in place a good, robust, responsible tax administration for the country.
And so before we wrap up, your message to the honest taxpayers of this country?
Well, I would appeal that tax payment as such, as a philosophy, tax payment is actually part of partnering with for nation building. So the taxpayer should actually view payment of tax with that spirit in mind, and so therefore we have actually rationalized the tax rates also. We have simplified the processes for a common taxpayer. Now tax payment or tax return filing experience is I would say a pleasant experience, and we have also, you see, so far as refunds are concerned, we have brought in more efficiency into the system, and in most of the cases the refunds are being issued within a few hours of actually filing the tax returns. So the process has been simplified, it has been made more user friendly. We are constantly working towards it. I would appeal to the taxpayer to participate in this nation building process, which the present trends also reflect that the taxpayers are participating. But then this is basically, I would appeal that you actually and I would also suggest to the taxpayers that whenever there is a feedback that they would want to give, we are so open to that, because what we believe is that change is the only constant, right? And constant improvement in processes builds confidence into the system and prompts compliance also. So with that spirit, the department is moving, and I would appeal and request the taxpayer to participate in that.
On that very positive note, sir, thank you so much for talking to us and sharing your perspective with us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, sir. Well, viewers, that's all we had for you in this edition. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to Sansad TV. Goodbye for now from my side.
To watch more programs of Sansad TV, subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to like and share them.